Gohan's two most notorious failures, despite their different circumstances, stem from the same fundamental root, and this is the unresolved, deeply ingrained internal conflict between his immense Saiyan power and his developed human personality and values. Nature versus nurture. And this conflict rendered him psychologically vulnerable when wielding supreme power under duress. The triggers differed, initiating distinct pathways to failure. Against Cell, it was trauma and unrestrained rage, and this overwhelmed his executive functions, leading to impulsive delay. Against Buu, it was cognitive dissonance and targeted manipulation, and it overwhelmed his executive functions again, resulting in hesitation and paralysis. Yet, the underlying mechanism, the breakdown of higher cognitive process under extreme psychological stress due to his divided self, remained consistent in both cases. So acknowledging this context elevates the analysis beyond simplistic claims of arrogance, simplistic claims of just fumbling the bag. While confidence was undoubtedly a factor, particularly against Buu when he thought that Gohan finally learned from his mistakes, the underlying psychological mechanism provide a far richer, more complex, and ultimately a more tragic and sad explanation. Gohan lacked the crucial psychological integration, the seamless fusion of his power and personality required to effectively command his ultimate strength decisively amidst the chaotic pressures of mortal combat. His failures were not tactical errors, they were not arrogance, they were not him just toying with his food, but they were symptoms of a profound internal struggle. Thus, the psychological evidence concludes this case. The examination of Gohan's defining failures reveals a narrative far richer and considerably more tragic than simple arrogance or battlefield missteps allow. What stands unveiled is the consistent impact of his core internal conflict, the scholar wrestling with the warrior, the gentle soul resisting the Saiyan imperative. Against Cell, we identified how profound psychological trauma short-circuited his newfound power. Rage born of pain fueled the trauma-induced aggression and power intoxication that overwhelmed his adolescent executive function. He was just a teenager, guys, and this resulted in impulsive retribution and fatal delay. His Saiyan nature erupted, gave him this unique power, but it was untempered and it was destructive. Against Buu, the challenge shifted, facing annihilation and the end of the world again. Gohan attempted a conscious adoption of the required ruthlessness that he saw within Goku and Vegeta. Yet, the analysis exposed the crippling cognitive dissonance this created. The chasm between rational necessity and his core aversion to killing. The dissonance manifested as a behavioral compromise, a demonstration of dominance substituting for immediate decisive action, and a fragile resolve ultimately shattered by Buu's psychological and astute manipulation, likely informed by Piccolo's absorption. He targeted Gohan's deepest attachments. We can see it that when Butenks was born, what is one of the things he said to Gohan? He spoke as Gotenks with the intelligence of Piccolo, knowing Gohan's weaknesses. He said with Gotenks' voice, "Gohan, why did you let Buu absorb me? Why did you fail again?" And the resulting cognitive overload and emotional shock induced paralysis proved that the Saiyan persona was merely a veneer over his fundamental nature. In both instances, the failure stemmed not from a lack of power. That's not what was missing in Gohan. We always knew that he was very strong, but it was from lack of a psychological integration necessary to finally wield that power effectively under extreme and targeted stress when it matters most. Gohan's ultimate story during this era therefore transcends just a simple arc of potential realized or squandered. It becomes a compelling study of the psychological weight of immense power borne by an individual lacking the inherent disposition for it. His struggles, his vulnerabilities, his very failures, they solidify this position not merely as a powerful fighter, but as one of Dragon Ball's most complex and resonant and tragically human figures. He embodied the often unsealed battle within, the struggle to reconcile who we are in with what circumstance demands. And yet, perhaps this very struggle, these painful trials and tribulations were necessary for eventually the latent promise will find its expression. Years later, facing a new threat, demanding his utmost, with no one there to save him, with no Goku, with no Vegeta, with only Gotenks and Piccolo, similar to how it was against Buu, Gohan would finally unlock a power born not just of rage or calculation, but seemingly of a honed instinct and protective resolve. The emergence of Beast Gohan signifies a culmination in a different kind of ascension. Through enduring his past, the prophecy was finally fulfilled. The gentle scholar, burdened by his power, finally stood as the strongest warrior in the universe, and he was finally unleashed.